Good afternoon.
Welcome back.
Oh, I'll start. Sorry, B, because you're going to do the longer speech.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. We are here today to informally chat to their Majesties of Atenveldt, which I probably have butchered how it's pronounced. I do apologize. We would like to, first of all, thank Master Magnus, who gave us this idea, and it has been an honor so far to introduce the crowns of the known world. My name is Countess Lilya Bintazier.
And I'm Countess Beatrix, and the first thing that I would like to do is to acknowledge the lands of the kingdoms on which we are meeting today. So we come together in the spirit of fellowship, deepening of skills, sharing of knowledge, and shared interest to search to find the truth in experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. I, Countess Beatrice Maria Malatesta, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands in which we gather. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and elders from other communities and kingdoms who may be here today. So thank you so much, Your Majesties, for joining us today. We are very excited to get to know you a little bit better.
You say that now.
So you are from the Kingdom of Atenveldt. Whereabouts is that located mundanely?
It's the state of Arizona. So essentially our kingdom is all contained just within the state. So we're, geographically speaking, relatively small.
Wow.
And
opposite of what we were in the beginning.
Yes.
And what is the climate like in Arizona? Is it hot, cold?
It's hot. I think it's actually not too far off of the climate that I think of when I think of Australia, honestly, and that is desert, hot. It's like 110 right now. So
Wow.
I don't know how to convert that to Celsius on the fly, but it's hot.
And we have 50 days of 110.
Wow. So I think it's about 40 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant.
Yeah.
But the winters are lovely. So
So one of the questions that we've been asking all royalty is, how did your device and the name of your kingdom come about?
well, so Atenveldt, which nobody says it that way anymore, that's the way it was said way back, literally means land of the sun. And we are the land of the sun. I mean, the sun is ridiculous here, right? And so our kingdom heraldry is also a sun. It's all pretty straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity going into it. Hot, the sun is out, and that's our kingdom.
And what is Atenveldt known for across the known world?
Probably Australia.
Australia, yeah.
I have heard many stories about Australia War, especially the weather.
Sometimes.
We've had a little bit of rain the last couple of years. When it's not a wet year, it's usually pretty lovely, like, very temperate, mild evenings. We don't get snow here ever, or so rarely that it makes the news when we do. So it's usually really lovely that time of year. It's just evidently the week of Australia the last few years has meant excessive rain.
So would that be the one of the events that you would encourage wayfarers to attend if anyone was coming from Lockout?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's aside from Penzic, I think it's Gulf is closing in on it, but it's a good sized war.
Okay. So how many fighters would you have out on the field?
about 500.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the attendance has dropped off a little bit over the last couple of years, but at its peak, we were at about 8,000 people on site. So
I think that's bigger than our kingdom in numbers alone, times 4.
It is big, it's definitely bigger than our kingdom by magnitude. So yeah.
So this is your 4th reign, is that correct?
that's correct.
So
Glutton for
what is or just love the society and your kingdom in particular want to do what's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what is the difference between your first reign and now that you are experienced in the rules of crown?
Do you want to jump on that?
No, you can start.
Obviously, the first reign was all about getting to see behind the curtain. Even though we had been landed Baron and Baroness, you don't get to see all of the inner workings. So the first reign, for us at least, it was getting to learn all of that stuff.
For me, the biggest difference is in the first reign, I was not entirely sure of, I don't want to say how much power I had because that sounds terrible, but like I didn't really grasp, you know, if I went to our white scarves and said, hey, I really need you all to do this thing, that they would just go, yeah, okay, and it would happen, right? And so maybe it didn't occur to me as much to ask for those things. And now I'm like, I need this thing done. I need to call the white scarves, or I need to call on the pelicans or whoever. Like maybe I wasn't as aware of my resources.
Were you peers when you reigned the first time?
Yes. Yeah, we were both peers at that point.
So if I've researched correctly, you're both pelicans.
Mhm.
Is that correct? And one of you is a laurel and one of you is a knight, correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. So what were you laureled in, Your Majesty?
Block printing, actually.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
very cool. And hence the lovely garb.
So, and there's a fun story about that.
Please.
I knew that he was going to get his pelican in that court. It was a grand court at Estrella, and it was going to be a surprise, primarily because probably wasn't going to be his favorite court ever. And so he got called into court, and so I'm just waiting, like, yay, this is the moment. And they didn't give him his pelican. They gave him some other award, right? And I was like, that's not what I thought was going to happen. And then he came back and got me. And so I was very confused by this. And he drags me up there, and I thought, well, maybe that's the setup, right? Okay,
Yeah.
That's the setup. I'm back in. And so I'm up there, and the king starts talking about my garb and the stuff that I've made. And then he calls in the laurels. And so I'm dumbfounded. And then His Majesty leaned down and whispered in my ear, hey, would you call up the Order of the Pelicans? And I was like, yes, I will. So at this point, all the laurels are there, right? So he has no escape route at all.
Blocked in.
And so we called in the Pelicans, and he was stuck, and it was good fun.
Ah, so you got elevated on the same day for the 2 different orders. That's
did.
amazing.
Yeah,
That is such a lovely story. It really is.
it was
And
fun.
something that you don't hear of happening. Does your kingdom usually do surprise peerages?
Not a lot.
Well, I mean, the offers are usually a surprise.
Yeah, but the actual elevations are usually, that's uncommon. It's not unheard of, but it's not common.
Yep.
Yeah. We have the same tradition in Lockhart where the elevations are generally done behind the scenes, and then the invitations are done behind the scenes, and then the elevations are coordinated and done in public. We very rarely do surprise elevations.
But you don't, the offer doesn't go out publicly?
Only if
Not
the
always.
candidate wants it to be made public.
Haha.
Yeah.
So our candidates don't typically know anything about it until it's announced,
Right.
which is risky, right? If you have a candidate who says no, that could be embarrassing, but
We've been lucky. Nobody we've offered has ever said no.
yeah.
So you said that you were a landed baron and baroness first before you won crown. In Lockhart, we have a terminology that being a baron and baroness is doing the marathon
Mhm.
and being royalty is doing the sprint. All right. So would you say that you've been landed baron, baroness, and king and queen now with all of your reigns the equal amount of times?
It's really close right now, actually.
With the extended reign, with the
Really
extended,
close.
with this extended reign, it's almost the same.
Yeah, super close. We're about
So you-
6 months off right now.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's a word for it, yeah.
So during the pandemic times, you've said that you said earlier on to us that you've been doing online courts. Is it hard to recognize your populace in the same with the same theater and I suppose oomph that you would if it was person to person? Like, do you feel that you're not as connected because you're doing it
Yeah.
via Zoom, or are you finding
For
other ways
sure.
around that?
Well, yeah, because usually when when our herald would call somebody in, one of us would speak to why they're being called in, but we generally will save something to say personally to that person that they're the only one that gets to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Do
so,
that on Zoom.
yeah.
I mean, I guess we could chat it to them, but that's kind of awkward. There's still ways to make those sorts of connections. We actually just offered a pelican to a young woman who has been really sort of going above and beyond during these times, and she organized some collegiums, and she helps run our virtual courts. And so she typically will gather pictures of all the people that we're going to recognize, and she'll show those pictures so that we're looking at that as opposed to looking at a shot of ourselves, which is super weird. And we didn't, of course, tell her that she was going to come up in this. And so we have another young lady who has pictures of all of the scrolls, because our kingdom gives scrolls for every award that goes out. And so I had given her the heads up, hey, I'm going to need a picture of this other person, if you can just work that in. And so she did. And then we also were able to get her live on there. You know, you can't always pick people out when you've got, I don't know, 50 or 100 people watching. It's hard to kind of flip through, especially since Zoom rearranges everybody. But fortunately, she had the controls, and so she was able to just put herself up there live. And so we got her pretty good. There was tears. It was great.
Oh, lovely.
That's lovely. So would you say that's the best part of being king and queen, is the actual acknowledging of your populace?
Hands down.
Oh yeah. Well, and especially when you make that connection where there is actually tears, or even if you just see them welling up, that it lets you know that you hit that at the right moment. They got that award at the most appropriate time. And I actually have a scrapbook of those moments. Anytime they get pictures of it, I never share them because people don't want that picture out there, but I have my own.
The ugly crying. Yeah.
That's actually what it's
called.
That's actually what I titled the
So with all of those memories that you have, what would be your most memorable moment of being crowned?
For me, it's actually been the entrances that I've done for the last 2 coronations, because I don't tell him what I'm doing. I just come in the way I'm going to come in, and he gets to be surprised too, which I don't know if he loves that or if he hates it, but I do it anyway. So for our third reign, I came in on a litter, standing. There were 6 gentlemen that carried me in. It was very nerve-wracking, but it was awesome. And then this most recent reign, I came in with, I wanted to really showcase the women of our kingdom who are fierce and who are warriors. And so I contacted a whole bunch of women who fight in one discipline or another and asked them to basically bring a weapon and bring me into court. And so we had a whole advance party that showed up that cleared the hall. And then my personal guard was all dressed to match me, and they all marched me in, and it was all very metal. It was fun. I had a great time.
I think for me, our first coronation, once I had put the crown on her, and yeah, I don't know how your kingdom does it, but at that point, generally, the knights will get called in and they'll all swear their oath, and so on through all the peers and everything. But in our first coronation, in fact, he was just interviewed the other night. Duke Deaton was our premier, the oldest knight in the kingdom at the time. It was right before he moved. It was the last reign that he was still in Atenveldt, and he came in with the sword of state and took it out of the sheath and put it to his heart and handed with the handle to me and swore his oath. And it was so moving. That moment was so moving. Like it's carried with me.
Yeah.
I think there's moments like that where it kind of, the veil between, as you said, the curtain, right? The curtain of the actual society and the actual intent and the emotional connection that we all have with each other, that dissipates, and that's all that is there, is that human connection and that moment where you go, this is my history. And that's a beautiful story. Well done.
Yeah.
Myself
And
and both tearing up.
What was so funny about it is that moment was so serious, but like 30 minutes prior to that, when I entered court to demand the throne, to demand the crown from the seated king, my herald narrated my entrance in Morgan Freeman's voice, very much like March of the Penguins.
Awesome.
So, to have a bit of comedy and then have that serious moment.
Yeah. Kind of encompasses the whole idea of the society, really, doesn't it?
Right?
So what is the origin story to your reign?
I don't know that we really have an origin story.
I don't think, yeah. I don't,
Yeah. We don't. No.
You don't have one?
Oh,
No.
and your personas within the society? Your personal personas?
10th century Rus? Roughly.
Roughly.
Roughly. Awesome. So within your kingdom, what are the traditions that you that bring you the most joy? That wouldn't be a tradition elsewhere?
So I don't know that there's any other kingdom that they may have done it once or twice, but every reign for us, our crown, our incoming crown crowns themselves.
Okay.
And there's, and most people are shocked by that. And the backstory to that is when Atenveldt broke from the West, for whatever reason, the crown of the West didn't make it on time for the coronation. And so our first crown had to crown himself. And so that's usually the theater, is the heir comes in and demands the crown. And then you swear the oath on the crown to the outgoing crown, and then he leaves, and then you crown him.
But I have one that's kind of like, it's a love-hate relationship. So our sword of state, nobody's allowed to touch this thing except knights. It's actually, it belongs to the chivalry. They paid for it and they made it. And so only the chivalry may touch the sword of state. which is a lovely tradition and is super cool until you have a prankster of a king who in the middle of signing scrolls will come in and put Thor's hammer down on whatever it is you need and leave. I'm not saying he does that, but he does that. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship with that.
So you don't swear fealty on the Sword of State?
Oh, we do. Only the chivalry can hold it.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah, if it needs to be picked up and moved, it needs to be a member of the chivalry.
Oh, wow. That's
And
very different.
Our original Sword of State went missing. And so all of the knights that were currently existed at the time, got the money together, and then they went to Kirby to make the sword, and they actually swung the hammers to forge the sword. So we all take it very personal. It's our sword.
Yep. That is fair. That is very fair. So, though leaving it on paperwork's probably not the best.
No.
It is a paperweight, not for me.
You know what? You have to have a sense of humor.
How did it get the name Thor's Hammer?
Oh,
That's
that's
just what I call it.
that's
No,
because she can't lift it.
Yeah.
Seems an appropriate name, really.
Yes.
that it actually
It
has a
does.
form
King's
of
Victory.
So I asked you what your favorite part of being crown is. What is the most difficult thing that you've done as crown? And we don't need names. You don't need to drop anybody in it. I think that people forget that there's you're making so many decisions for the kingdom that some of them weigh heavy. So
the hardest thing, I think, I can think of two. One being we had to banish someone from our reign. We had to actually level a pretty hefty banishment against them.
Yeah.
And that was difficult. It was somebody who was part of our court. And so that was personal and hard. And the second one is I closed the Order of the White Scarf here.
oh,
That was awful. So those two things were rough. Yeah.
Yeah, we are one of the few kingdoms that has also closed the Order of the White Scarf. Yeah.
And those of us who were queen during and the White Scarf was still running, it was almost like a little piece of your heart broke because you have that personal connection with the lovely men and women of that order that you're just like, oh, gone.
It was really tough for us because when the MOD first came out, we were actually seated that when we opened it up in our kingdom, we were the incoming crown that weekend. And so we had lots of meetings with the White Scarfs at the time to decide what was going to happen. And the decision coming out of that was to leave it open. And so we left it open, and then it was a couple of years later, it had to come back up around because it wasn't going well.
Yeah.
It was causing so much dissension in that community that,
not an easy decision. Yeah.
That one was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a very difficult time. I can imagine. Yeah.
So we're going to ask you some of your backstory, because part of the reason why we ask everybody is that it just kind of reminds everybody that we all start and make idiots of ourselves before we become the pinnacle of a kingdom at some point. So how long have you both played in the society, and did you join as a couple or did you meet in the society?
You want to take that?
You look like you were going to start.
So we've been playing about 20 years.
Yep.
And we were already a couple when we joined the society. I was aware of it prior to that, but I didn't really know how to get involved here in Arizona. I had come across it in the Bay Area, up outside of Berkeley. And I just didn't know enough about it to know to go look for it. And so we had a friend who he's known since childhood that got us involved. And oh yeah, it was like he found out he was allowed to hit people with a stick, and it was on. So
Spent quite a few years dragging her along. I don't think the SCA had grabbed her quite as easily as it grabbed me.
That's fair.
So fighting has kept you in the SCA, Your Majesty.
Very
What has
much
kept? Sorry.
I said very much so.
What has kept you in, Queen Elizabeth?
people more than anything. I love being able to meet people from all over the world. And it's just given us an opportunity to travel and meet people and see places that we really just wouldn't, like who goes to Mississippi on vacation? But it's given us that opportunity to go, you know, so we could go to Gulf Wars and meet people there and form those relationships. And then also it provides an outlet for me to be creative, because I wouldn't do block printing elsewhere, I don't think, you know, and all of the sewing that I do and those sorts of things. Like I don't know anywhere else that I would put those skills to use. So all of those.
What is one of the things you miss about not being, so when you're reigning, you do lots of things. What do you miss about when you are not on the throne?
Downtime.
Yeah.
Just getting to be yourself, not having to, I mean, you've both sat a throne too, you know that you kind of have to restrain your personality sometimes because it's maybe not appropriate for the person wearing the crown.
Yes.
That's probably for me.
Yeah, I think the schedule and just being able to actually hang out with my people, you know, like my people.
Yep.
I love everybody in our kingdom. They're wonderful people, but you know, your very closest circle of friends sort of has to just be sort of here when you're reigning. And I miss just being able to hang out with them and not have responsibilities.
Yeah. How many events would you average during a reign for you to attend?
So
Obviously not this reign.
No.
I'd say on a normal reign, so our reigns are 6 months here. So what is that, 26 weekends? We probably have 22 events in that time frame. Our calendar is packed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or was it the second reign where we had like 4 investitures?
Oh, it was ridiculous. Yeah.
And you're doing your investitures online, you were saying earlier on, is that correct?
So we've done 2 so far since the shutdown. We've actually done 3 this reign thus far. We have another one this coming weekend, and it'll be a Zoom meeting, but we will physically be there with the couple that we're investing and the couple that we're removing, divesting. Yeah. Retiring, yes. So it's a very controlled, small number of people that will be there.
Sorry.
You're right, I did it. My first meeting, my sister handed me a drink like that.
Perfect. So yeah, so it's an online court for most people, and then about 8 or 10 people, it's an in-person court.
Do you find you're doing more online courts than you would normally do in a physical, right? Like and physically attending reigns?
Oh no.
We're only doing about 1 a month. Just
Okay.
we're trying to keep everybody together and make sure that we're still connecting as a kingdom. Whereas normally there's probably at least 2 events a month. So.
Yeah.
So is there any online activity that you're proud of that your kingdom is doing, apart from obviously your courts? Like, are they doing bardic circles or costuming challenges or?
Yeah, I think the first was we hosted a collegium that they opened up to the known world. They put it out to everybody, and
We had attendance from 19 kingdoms. at that museum. It was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the young lady who put that together is the one that I was telling you a bit ago that we offered her for Pelican last weekend, primarily for that kind of just above and beyond. We have a Bardic challenge going right now. We did a Queen's Prize last month. So people would submit pictures of the projects that they've been working on and documentation for certain categories.
And we opened that one up to anybody.
Yep.
You didn't have to be from Atenveldt.
Nice.
And Your Majesty, I believe you've run a training focus and mindset class online as well. Is that correct?
I did. It was almost more like an interview, but yeah, I taught. It went out on the Known World Fighter page. Vesper interviewed me. She's been doing amazing with interviewing people, constantly fighters.
I think it's hard sometimes to keep because obviously fighting is a major part of the society. It's hard to kind of keep the physical kind of interest because, we're all at home. The Pell is great, but, it's not the same. So there has been some amazing work done online to encourage fighters to train in unfamiliar ways to actually keep their motivation going, which has been awesome. So.
Oh yeah, I've catch myself watching stuff constantly, and I'm doing a lot of watching old fighting videos to kind of pick apart what I'm doing wrong.
I know over in Lockout we have one of our ladies who hosts a Bardic session every week, and she has gathered members of the populace from across the known world that are joining in there as well. Do you have any nights like that happening?
I don't think we have a Scribble Zoom call that goes on, and I believe that's open to everybody. But I don't know that we have any ongoing Bardics or anything of that nature.
So I do have a question for you, and it's about awards. And in Lockout we have an award that's only given once per reign, and it is seen as the premier award. Mm-hmm. Do you have one in Atenveldt?
Yes, we do. The Lion of Atenveldt. And it's given at. It's usually one of the last things done at the end of a reign. It's essentially the king's the one that gives it out, and it's to somebody that he sees as being the epitome of what the SCA stands for.
That King Jason was speaking about that yesterday in our interview with him, where a lion had come up and given him a lion token as an inspiration.
Nice. Yeah.
Anstiora has lions as well.
Yeah, Anstiora, and I think Antir has the same award too. And
really?
There's a lot of kingdoms like that. The Outlands has one called Walker the Way, which is essentially the same.
So there's no award that Her Majesty can give out once a reign?
That is not true.
I do have one, actually. So I have an award that is the Queen's Grace, which is for gentles who inspire the Queen. And then there's once a reign, there's a commander of the Queen's Grace. So it goes out to somebody who has previously gotten a Queen's Grace, who continues to inspire, or who greatly inspires the current Queen. So it's similar, but a little bit different.
Lovely. What would you see as other prestigious awards across your kingdom?
We have a set of awards called the Glory of Atenveldt, and they are designed to recognize peers who have continued to behave like peers and support the kingdom after their elevation. So it's not something that would go out to you, you get your Pelican and then a year later you get your glory. It's not like that. It's like you are the Pelican, it's one of those awards. That one goes out typically about once a reign for each of the orders, but not always. And it can go out more frequently if there are people who just really need to be recognized.
So I'm going to ask you to think back to your first win in a crown tournament, and what were both of your impressions when that happened?
So I finaled a number of times in a row before I finally won. So
Nerve-wracking.
yeah, I think the thing for me was just the reaction of the crowd when I threw that last shot and won. Hearing the crowd, and I think it's because there was people pulling for me because I had lost so many times at that last minute. And so
We have a Duke here that has had the same reaction. He had come second quite a number of times before actually winning.
It's the worst. I've told people I'd rather go out in 2.
Yeah. And Your Majesty, what was your reaction to his win?
I wasn't sure that it was going to stick, if you will.
Yep.
So I waited until the king announced it, because I was like, nope, we're just going to wait a second. And they announced it, and then I was very excited.
Lovely. Do you have a tradition around your crown tourneys? So in Lockout, we have the Ladies of the Rose, and we have an order of the Coronaria, who are the previous crown princesses, who all gather around the Queen for the final of the crown tourney, and the knights gather around the field. Did you have any traditions in that line?
Exactly the same, actually.
Yeah.
So the Queen will take the consorts for the finalists, and they typically sit next to her on either side of her, not next to each other.
Yeah.
And the Ladies of the Rose are gathered around them, and then the knights are all on the field.
The knights are all loafing, laying down on the field.
Yeah, they're usually laying down, lounging, if you will.
Lounging around the edge.
Right. So did you know where Lockhart was before we decided to extend our invitations to the known world?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, our first reign at Pennsic, we spent a fair amount of time hanging out with the Crown of Lockhart at the time, which I don't remember his SCA name, but his real name is Paul Adams.
Stefan?
Yeah.
Stefan.
Stefan, that would be the Duke that we were talking about, who kept
Oh,
coming
nice.
and running up.
We really enjoyed his company.
So you've met us, obviously, as a populace.
Oh, yeah.
And what was your impression of the other members of the populace?
You know what? We had a great time with him. There was, because I think he had gotten 35 people to go to Pennsic. I was asking him if Countesses had given him a discount.
Should have.
That was a very large Lockout campsite that year. I was attending that one.
Nice.
But from a Lockout point of view, the biggest highlight was the number of fighters that we did have out on the warfield.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a rare thing for Lockout to be able to command a side in a Pennsic war, because we are usually so small.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our numbers, I think you surpassed our numbers that year.
Yeah. That was crazy. So have you had the opportunity to travel to Lockout lands?
No.
No, we've not.
Okay.
Would you take that opportunity?
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe not, but no.
Yeah.
We do ask because there have been some mixed reactions to that question.
Really? No.
We have lots of bitey things here.
We do here
yeah,
too.
We do too. Yeah. Everything here is trying to kill you, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
We try to avoid everything.
Yeah. Just find shady spot and drink. That's the way to do it.
is it natural? Don't touch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So what is your favorite story to tell to people after you've had a couple of drinks or a cup of tea and you're relaxed and the coronets and the crowns are off?
I know this one. So at that Pennsic, His Majesty Callantyr had clearly not read the rule book. And so he got busted for running across the field, which is a no-no at Pennsic.
Yeah, so the best part is he got pulled into a marshal's court and they asked him how many steps he had taken in that charge. And he's like, I don't know, like 100. So the rule is 5. 5 steps.
So there was a lot of teasing that went back and forth. They actually pulled his sticker. He wasn't allowed to fight
Until
he read the rules to his army, which, right? And
Yeah.
so we gave him a ton of grief because as king, what you do is you then say, Harold, you're my voice, read the rules to the army. But instead he read the rules to his army. So, oh yeah. So
he's young.
He's so pretty. So we just messed with him the whole time. And so our herald at the time, who was the same gentleman who heralded him in with the March of the Penguins bit, he devised a plan and a product that he could sell like an infomercial.
Well, and we had another gentle that wrote a cadence about charging more than 5 steps.
Yeah.
Because Callantyr sings everywhere they go.
So the entire mighty Aten army of like, I don't know, maybe 15 people marched down to their court, their kingdom court, singing this cadence. And we had our son with us who was about 14 at the time. And so we said, Your Majesties, can we interrupt your court? We have a piece that we think might entertain your populace. And they said, oh yes, of course. And like, he was so sweet. And by the way, we love Callan. He is a good friend of ours, Duke Xerxes. He never asked us what we were doing in his court. He just said, yeah, whatever you.
When I asked him if I could entertain his populace for a moment, and he gave me permission.
Yeah.
So it's his fault.
So the infomercial was, do you have problems with furious charging? We have this product, and it was essentially a bungee cord harness that they put
With
on
a
our
handle
son
on the back?
with a handle. So our son went running at a friend of ours with a shield, and the herald pulled him back. Wasn't able to charge, right? So
The Charge-O-Matic 9000.
yeah, so he still carries it with him. He takes it to events, Xerxes does, and that was, it's just so stupid, like silly fun.
And it's one of those things. You've both sat a throne too. That you bond with anybody that's sitting at the same time with you that you spend time with. That become lifelong friendships. I mean, Callan camps with us every year at Estrella now.
Wow. Yeah, that is so true. And I know going from Lockout to, especially going to Pennsic, there's not many people who have the opportunity to be able to do that from our kingdom. And it has most definitely built some long-lasting friendships in that space. Both Lilya and I have been over to Pennsic and had that experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect for you guys too.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trip.
I think my first year that I traveled there, I traveled with my sister-in-law and a good friend of ours, and I was awake the whole flight to Pennsic.
That's not good.
Because I was so excited that I could not sleep. And the other 2 ladies were the exact same. And when we got to site, they call them slumlords, I believe, like the person who's in charge of the actual campsite. He took one look at us and just went, no. Like, we were all given a shot of whiskey and sent to bed. It's just like, no, you're not coming out to play like that. Like,
Not tonight.
Not now. So you mentioned you have a son. How difficult is it to reign with a child? Like, do you have a support network that keeps him entertained, or does he play in the society as well? So
he did growing up. He's 18 now, so now he doesn't
He doesn't.
hang out with us.
For the last two reigns, he only shows up if he wants to.
Right. And our current chatelaine actually is a nurse as well, and she is one of my closest friends, and she makes sure that he doesn't kill himself, really. And he traveled everywhere with us for that first reign that we did was a summer reign, which is the travel reign, and he went everywhere with us, and we traveled a lot. It was pretty extensive. He came to Pennsic with us. He did Great Western with us.
We were trying to rebuild fractured friendships with other kingdoms to promote attendance to Australia. So we went everywhere. We were in Caid, the West, Artemisia,
all over the place.
Outlands.
And we're blessed in that he's very easygoing and sort of self-sufficient. You know, he's an only child, and so he's always kind of had to entertain himself. And so he just kind of goes with the flow and whatever you need, you guys, and doesn't really get in too much trouble. Not too much. Occasionally, but not bad.
So I'm going to ask you what would be the strangest thing that you have heard about the Kingdom of Lockhart?
I don't know that I've heard anything strange.
I don't think I have.
I mean, the bitey killy things, like we said, that's familiar, so that's not odd.
Have you done a Tim Tam slam?
What? I don't know what you just said.
a Tim Tam slam.
No.
I don't know.
So
what that is.
the cookies, Tim Tams are the cookies.
Okay.
I've seen pictures.
Oh, so you haven't tasted Tim Tams?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, we'll have to rectify this. Absolutely.
I think we should get Bronwyn and Stefan on to sending you some. That would maybe.
Are they afraid?
No, they're delicious. Like they're not like Vegemite. They're actually quite tasty.
Good. All right.
They're a chocolate cookie.
Oh, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. And it's kind of you bite opposite corners off and you use the cookie as a straw.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to it's that delicate balance of eating the cookie before it all falls in your drink.
Do you drink a particular drink? Like, is it a milk straw or soda? Or...
You could do it with, I would recommend it with either coffee or port. Really good with port.
All right. Yeah.
Right.
Or a coffee flavored liqueur, something, because it is going to absorb quite quickly, and unless you want a mouthful of really strong alcohol.
All right.
Yeah.
So if we travel to your kingdom, what would you expect us or encourage us to see both in the SCA and outside of the SCA geographically, and experiences, and like what foods would we eat?
So in the SCA, I would say Australia. That's kind of a no-brainer. Outside of it, mundanely, I think everybody goes to see the Grand Canyon. It's kind of a major landmark here.
Yeah.
Funny thing, we still haven't taken our son there. My mom took him like 2 summers ago. So it's totally one of those things that like maybe the locals don't do that often. I don't. We do have Sedona though, which is beautiful. It's all red rock. It's stunning, and it's just outside of Phoenix, so it's pretty easy to get to. And in terms of food, I mean, there's a lot of Mexican food here because, proximity. Yeah,
That would
that's probably the local
highlight
fair.
food-wise.
So is there anybody in your kingdom that you would like to sneakily thank while you're online with us? Or do a shout out to?
I mean, we've got our Chatelaine and a couple of other friends who are making the dinner right now. And that's
Oh.
I'm really hungry. Yeah. Anybody you wanted to?
Just, everybody in the populace that are, getting through this, not being able to hang out and finding creative ways to keep everybody connected.
So you're looking forward to stepping down?
Someday.
So our heirs, it's their first reign.
Wow.
And so we agreed to ride the storm so that they could actually have a reign.
And like
They-
a real coronation. I'd
they-
like them to have an event for that and not an online like.
Here's the hat.
Yep.
That's typical, right? So
We want them to actually have that moment. So
Oh, that's lovely. So when is your coronation due?
it was in May.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the next one.
Next one is November, but the SCA is shut down until the end of
Yeah.
January right now. So at this point, we're looking at potentially sometime in February, depending on whether or not things open back up.
Yeah. We are having the same kind of thing here. We have November crown coming up. So this is our longest reign that any of the crowns have had. So Theodoric and Angolan stepped up in January, and we had to cancel May crown and we cancelled midwinter coronation. So we're hopeful of November. However, because we cross two countries and Australia's border is closed.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah.
It is. And we've also internally, our state borders are closed as well to other states.
So nobody can travel.
No. And if you do travel, you have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks.
That's tough to do a crown tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that kind of limbo thing at the moment. And I know in Lockout, I'm current Lockout Seneschal, and that's definitely one of the biggest challenges that our populace are facing is the uncertainty. Do you find the same there?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, we just recently had to postpone the dates for Australia because even with the shutdown, it was going to be like 2 weeks 2 weeks after things might open back up that Australia was supposed to happen, and it was too much of a risk financially to keep that locked in, and so we had to postpone it. And so I know people are disappointed across, not even just our kingdom, that everything's canceling one event after another.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was meant to travel to Gulf Wars this year and to Penzig, and
Yeah.
being encouraged to go to Australia as well. Yeah.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah, Gulf Wars canceled
Thursday.
like a couple of days before our flight to go there.
Yeah.
So,
We weren't already here when they canceled it.
No, it was cancelled the day before I was due to fly.
Ah. That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, I'm kind of glad. Otherwise, I would have been flying or mid-transit when it was
Yeah.
cancelled, and yeah, it
and
would
then
have been an interesting time being stuck in the US.
Surprise.
yeah.
So
I'm
what
very
are
lucky.
you playing? That was the other question I wanted to ask. Sorry, Beatrice. What
Alright.
keeps you playing in the SCA?
For me, it's the people.
Yeah.
I think of like what we were before we started playing the SCA. I mean, we maybe had a handful of people that we spent time with, and I look at how vast my friendships are across the country and across the planet, actually. I have friends everywhere now and people that I keep in contact with all the time, and I wouldn't have that without the SCA.
That's lovely. I think it's the same. I know that's definitely it for me. I love fighting. I don't get to fight very often. I have the creative outlet, but meeting so many people and being able to say that I have friends across the world, across the known world, and even without that, just the ability to travel to any kingdom and know that there is hospitality there.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. It's kind of amazing when you think like, oh, if I got stranded in Idaho, I could call somebody, you know, I could put it on the internet that, hey, I'm here, I need somewhere to be. And there would be somebody, even if you don't know them, that would say, oh yeah, we'll get her, you know, we got it, no problem. That's kind of amazing to have that network.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely lovely.
So what kind of dog is it?
That one's a mix.
Yeah.
He's not on camera. He's camera shy.
Yeah.
He's a Rhodesian Ridgeback mixed with a golden retriever. And so you would think he'd be a blonde dog, but he's actually like a mid-sized little black dog.
Wow. Okay.
I got nothing. The gray beard, because he's an old man these days.
Why is it that men always are told they're distinguished when they get gray? Women just age.
Yeah. Not right.
You told me not to.
So we're coming to the almost the end of our interviews, Your Majesty, this interview. Is there anything that you would like to say to the populace of Lockhart before we say goodbye?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been a pleasure, really, and it's lovely to get to know all of you. And if ever you are coming to Atenveldt, I recognize that's a heck of a trek. Let us know. Like we certainly will make sure that you are put up and taken care of, and we would love to extend some hospitality.
We love when people get to travel, and you know, I'm sure you guys the same way. You love to share your kingdom with people that travel from afar, and we're the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And the offer is the same across Lockhart. If you ever travel across this way, please reach out and you will be welcome with open arms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video. We would ask that you don't forget to like, share and subscribe to A Crown Between Two Roses, making the world, known world a little bigger and a little closer at the same time. And thank you, Your Majesties, and we look forward to seeing you all again next weekend, where we have some more crowns coming in for an interview. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Your
Bye.
Majesty. It's been a pleasure.